All right, the last thing we're going to talk about in this section is media queries. With media queries, we can provide different styles for different devices depending on their features such as screen size, orientation, and so on. So with this, we can build web pages that look great on mobile phones, tablets, and desktop computers. We call these websites responsive websites because they respond to various screen sizes. Now, to build a responsive website, we have two approaches. We can build the desktop version first and then adjust the layout for tablets and mobiles, or we can start with mobile first and then adjust the layout for tablets and desktops. Different people have different preferences here, but the majority of the community favors mobile first because it's much easier to build a simple web page for mobile, and then if you have extra space, we can add in extra stuff. On the other hand, if we build a complex page for desktop, then we'll have to squeeze a lot of things so the page looks good on mobile. It's definitely doable, but it's not something that I recommend. So in this course, we're going to take the mobile first approach. Now let me show you what we're going to build in this lesson. So we have these two boxes with some text. On a white screen, these two boxes are next to each other, but on mobile, they're going to get stacked vertically. I've seen this pattern on a lot of websites. So let's see how we can use media queries to implement something like this. So we're going to start off by creating a div with the class of container. Inside this div, we're going to add two divs with the class of box. So we type dot box times 2. Now, inside each box, let's add a paragraph with some dummy text. And one more time. Okay. So to implement this, we're going to use flex on this container. Now, as you know, by default, flex direction is set to row. So for mobile, you want to set flex direction to column. And then we use media queries to see if the screen is wider than, let's say, 500 pixels. Then we're going to set flex direction to row. So these boxes will appear next to each other. Pretty basic. So in our style sheet, let's define the styles for our container. We're going to set display to flex and flex direction to column. So this is the mobile first approach. We're starting with mobile. We want to make sure that everything looks great on mobile, and then we'll adjust styles for larger screens like tablets and desktops. Okay. Now for our boxes, we're going to set the background to gold, and we're going to add some padding so the text is not so close to the edges of the box. So we can say 1 rem. Now I want to change the color of the second box. So here we can use pseudo class selectors. So dot box colon nth of type 2. So this will target the second occurrence of an element with the class of box. Okay. Here we're going to set the background to Dodger blue. Let's see what we get up to this point. So here's what we get. So we have two boxes laid out vertically. Obviously on desktop, this doesn't look so good because each line contains so many characters. It's really hard to read this text because the ideal line length is somewhere around 50 to 60 characters. But on mobile, this looks perfectly fine, right? Now let me show you something really cool. Using Chrome DevTools, we can see what this screen looks like on various mobile devices. So we go to View, Developer, and open up Chrome DevTools. Now, here on the Elements tab, look at this icon. With this, we can toggle device simulation. So let's click it. Now, take a look. So on the top, we have a drop-down list that determines the type of device. So we have various devices like iPhone 5, iPhone 6, iPhone X, iPad, Surface, Galaxy, and so on. So let's select iPhone X. Here's a preview of our web page on an iPhone X. Now let's zoom in a bit more so we can see things clearly. Our page looks perfectly fine. Now we can also rotate the device. So this is the landscape mode. In this mode, it's better to put these boxes next to each other because currently the lines are way too long. So using this drop-down list, we can preview our web page on various devices. It's very handy. Now, to get out of the screen, we click on this icon one more time. It's gone. Good. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to make the browser window really small. So this is our mobile phone. Okay. Now we'll start increasing the browser size and look at our design. At some point, our design is going to break. It's going to look bad. That is the moment where we need a breakpoint. So a breakpoint is the point at which our design breaks. Then we're going to use media queries to write specific styles for devices that are wider than our breakpoint. So here we need to open up Chrome DevTools one more time. Now, when DevTools is open, if we resize the window, we can see the current size of the viewport. So currently, our viewport is 629 pixels wide. Let's say at this point, we want to put these boxes next to each other. So we go back to our style sheet, and this is where we use a media query. So we start with @media rule, and then we type our query. A query can have multiple parts. So with each part, we're asking something about the target device. The first part is the type of the device, which can be screen for web browsers or print. So this targets printers. We'll talk about this in a second. In this case, we're going to go with screen. Now, we want to type the second part of the query. So we use the AND operator, and here in parentheses, we type a condition. We want to check to see if the screen is wider than 600 pixels. So we say min width : 600 pixels. So if this condition, if this query is true, then the styles that we define inside these curly braces will be applied. Otherwise, they're going to be ignored. So here we can define new rules that will override the previous rules. For example, for our container, we're going to change the flex direction to row. So here we type .container flex direction row. Now, take a look. So at a certain point, that is our breakpoint, which is 600 pixels, our boxes are laid out horizontally. Now, if we go back to mobile, they're laid out vertically. As simple as that. Now, the breakpoints we use really depends on our design. It really depends on what we're building. One of the mistakes a lot of people make is they find tables like this on our internet where they can find common breakpoints. For example, the width of a mobile phone in portrait mode is somewhere between 320 pixels to 414 pixels. Similarly, we have a breakpoint range for mobile phones in landscape mode, tablets, desktops, and so on. Now, the problem with these tables is that they're based on the existing devices in the market. So tomorrow we might have a new device that is, let's say, 5 or 10 pixels wider or more narrow. You don't want to adjust your design based on the current devices in the market. Your design should always look good. So the numbers you choose for your breakpoints really depends on your design. Don't blindly pick breakpoints from these tables on our internet, okay? So this is a common application of a media query. Now, as I told you before, our query can have multiple parts. So here we have screen and a minimum width. We can extend this query and check the maximum width of the device. For example, we can say, and max width is 900 pixels. So now if the screen is between 600 to 900 pixels, these styles are going to be applied. So once again, the conditions that we define here really depend on our design, okay? Now in this example, I'm going to get rid of the third condition. So we have a set of rules. We can write another query for screens that are wider than 900 pixels. So I'm going to copy these few lines, paste them over here, then change the breakpoint to 900 pixels. Now, in this example, we can even change the background color of our boxes. We can set the background to white. So now, if our screen is wider than 900 pixels, we get a different look. So the changes that we apply here really depend on our design and how it should look across different devices. There is no right or wrong. Now, one last thing before we finish this lesson. I told you that the media type can be a screen or print. Using media queries, we can apply styles that will only apply to printers. For example, we can define another media query here and set the type to print. Here we can define a rule for the body element and set the font size to 12 points. So now we are using an absolute unit that makes sense for printers. We don't want to use pixels or relative units like ems, percentages, and so on for printers. They do work, but they're not ideal. When printing pages, we want to make sure everything looks great on a piece of paper. So we should use points for our fonts. And for our paddings and margins, we want to use centimeters or inches. For example, for our box, we can say the padding should be half a centimeter. Now, back to our page. When we bring the print preview dialog box, we can see the result of our changes. So using media queries, we can query certain properties of a device, like its type, its width, and so on, and then provide styles that will only apply if those properties are met.